welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking on what is maybe one of the most persistent myths out there.
The one about creativity.
Exactly, that it's this fragile, magical gift.
Right, that it's reserved for a talented few, or worse, that it's some kind of, mystical muse that shows up when it feels like it.
And the whole implication is, if you try to schedule it, if you look at it too closely, poof, it's gone.
Which is not only false, but it's really corrosive to anyone trying to make a real impact. We've been looking at sources all week that say something, well, frankly, surprising.
Which is?
The magic of creativity is that there is no magic.
I find that so liberating. It just flies completely in the face of what the industrial era taught us.
Oh, absolutely. That whole system was about compliance, recipes, guaranteed outcomes.
So our mission today in this deep dive is to build a framework for persistent, impactful creation. A process our sources just call the practice.
Precisely. And if you're out there trying to be a persistent creator, an entrepreneur, an engineer, a writer, really anyone, you have to make this shift.
A shift away from unreliable outcomes.
And a full commitment to a reliable, intentional process.
Okay, let's unpack that. What exactly is the practice? How is it different from just, doing the work?
Well, the practice is a persistent, stepwise approach that you do for its own sake.
For the process itself.
Yes, it's about building a rhythm, showing up no matter what. And the core principle, the real key, is realizing what you can actually control.
And what's that?
The practice is the output, because the practice is the only thing you can control, the outcome. That belongs to the market, to luck, to timing.
That right there, that contradicts pretty much all professional training.
It does. The industrial model gives you a recipe, follow steps A, B, and C, and you get result D.
And you're judged on result D.
Exactly. And that's fine for repeatable work, but the important work, the work that creates change, that solves new problems, there's no recipe for that.
It's nonlinear.
It's messy, unpredictable, and it's all about making things better, not just repeating the past. You can't measure that with a simple recipe.
I think the best analogy our sources gave for this was learning how to juggle.
It's such a perfect, painful example because it shows how obsessed we are with the outcome.
Right. Most people who try to learn, they fail because they're totally focused on one thing.
Catching the ball.
That desperate lunge for the catch.
And the second you do that, you're out of position for the next throw. The whole system just falls apart.
So the real method is completely counterintuitive.
It is. It's throw drop. Throw drop. You have to willingly, deliberately ignore the outcome, which is dropping the ball, and focus 100% on mastering the throw.
And if the throw is good enough,
the catching eventually takes care of itself. It shifts everything to the process.
That really highlights the discomfort, doesn't it? You have to tolerate what feels like constant, immediate failure for a future success that isn't even guaranteed.
And that's something a lot of people just can't stomach. They give up because the process involves failure by design.
Which brings us to that old internet meme, the draw an owl comic.
Oh, yeah. The classic.
Step 1, draw 2 circles.
And step 2, draw the rest of the owl.
Right. That huge missing gap is the joke.
But it's also our desperate need for a guaranteed map before we start. For important creative work, the instructions are always going to be insufficient. The path isn't lit.
And the sources argue that's where the reward is. If it were easy, everyone would do it.
So that's the external process. Let's pivot now to the internal shifts you need to make to actually sustain this.
Okay, so for years, we've treated creativity like a feeling, right? A mood we have to wait for.
The muse has to show up.
But the sources reframe this completely. Creativity isn't a feeling. It's an action.
It has to be. Waiting for the muse is a luxury a professional just doesn't have. They show up and they act. And what's really fascinating is how that action changes your feelings.
How so?
If you act as if you trust the process, if you just do the work, the feelings, inspiration, motivation, they actually follow the action.
That connects directly to this idea of flow, that magical state we all chase.
We do. We hold back. I can't start. I'm not in the mood. I don't feel the flow.
But that's all wrong.
It's completely backward. Flow isn't the cause of the work. It's a symptom of the work being done.
It's a symptom. I like that.
It shows up after you commit to the grind. It's the reward for showing up, not the prerequisite.
And this reframes the whole often paralyzing idea of passion and finding your calling.
Oh, that's such a trap. It's an excuse to wait forever, believing passion has to come first.
But the sources flip that.
They flip it entirely. Only after you commit to the difficult, frustrating work and you get good at it does it become your calling. Passion is just the work you've trusted yourself enough to do consistently.
So you don't find passion, you build it.
You build it. Which brings us to that amazing quote from the sources.
Do what you love is for amateurs. Love what you do is the mantra for professionals.
Exactly.
But I want to push back on that. How do you actually choose to love work that's hard or, tedious?
It's not about finding joy in every single tedious moment. It's about recognizing that tedium is the price of admission for the meaningful part.
So you connect the boring part to the bigger goal.
You connect the moment of difficulty, the annoying throw drop and juggling to the eventual mastery. You choose to focus on that connection. That's the commitment.
That kind of consistency, especially when you're on new ground, seems like a recipe for constant self-doubt.
Which brings us to imposter syndrome.
The dreaded imposter syndrome. If I'm doing new, uncertain work, I'm probably going to feel like a fraud every single day.
And that feeling is a profound sign that you are on the right track.
A sign of health.
Absolutely. It's proof you're innovating, leading, doing things that are new to you. If you were totally comfortable, you'd just be repeating old work.
But isn't there a point where that becomes paralyzing? How do you tell the difference between healthy self-doubt and just, debilitating fear?
It all comes down to what you're trying to control. Confidence comes from believing you can control the outcome.
Which we've already established is impossible.
It's impossible. So demanding that control leads to paralysis. The alternative isn't confidence. It's trust. It's trusting the process. The imposter feeling just means you're taking necessary risks. You're trying to make things better for others, and that is always going to feel uncomfortable.
So if we take that internal trust and turn it outward, the practice becomes an act of generosity.
That's the core of it. The sources define art, and that can be code or business strategy or music, as the act of doing something that might not work simply because it's a generous thing to do.
I love that. And they use that amazing metaphor, the Turkish tradition of ıskara ekmek.
Bread on the hook. It's just a wonderful system.
Yeah, can you explain that for everyone?
Sure. A customer goes into a bakery. They pay for 2 loaves of bread, but only take one. They tell the baker to hang the extra one on a hook outside.
That anyone who's hungry can just take it.
Just take it, no questions asked. The donor and the recipient never meet.
And the creative practice is putting your bread on that hook.
Exactly. You create something valuable, a solution, an insight, and you put it out there to serve a need separate from you. You're solving problems for people you might never even meet.
And to make sure that work actually lands, that it's truly generous, you have to be intentional.
Deeply intentional, which leads to the 2 critical questions you have to ask about everything you make.
1, who is it for? And 2, what is it for?
And it is so easy to avoid those questions. Most people do. They aim for everyone.
Which means you're aiming for no one. Your work becomes generic, replaceable.
And this is where practical empathy comes in. Really understanding a specific audience, what they believe, what they fear.
The source has made a great contrast here. Early network TV, for example.
Right. When the goal was 30 million viewers, you got the lowest common denominator. Safe, predictable shows.
But then you get those so-called golden age of TV. Shows like The Sopranos or Mad Men.
They weren't aiming for 30 million. They were aiming for a specific, smaller audience that wanted complexity.
They might have only had a few million viewers at first.
But the impact was monumental because they were creating for someone, not for everyone.
That specificity puts you on the hook. It requires you to really get that someone.
And that's how change happens, from the sides. The sources use the analogy of cowboys herding just 10 cattle at the edge of the herd.
And those 10 guide the direction of the entire group.
You don't need the whole mass. You just need the people who care.
Which means, as a professional, you have to be okay with shunning the non-believers.
You have to be. If your goal is to create change, you have to accept that your work is not for everyone and be willing to say, this isn't for you.
That's a big commitment. And it connects to this other pillar of the professional mindset. The difference between talent and skill.
We really need to get over the idea that talent is enough. Skill is earned, it's practiced.
There was that incredible study of competitive swimmers.
Yeah, they looked at good swimmers versus great swimmers. And there was no real difference in training hours or even innate talent.
So what was the difference?
It was learned skills, quantifiable things like the exact timing of a flip turn. But crucially, they also identified attitude resilience, focus as a skill.
Attitude is a skill.
A skill you can learn and improve, just like a flutter kick.
So a professional chooses their attitude, which is how they can just dismiss something like, Writer's block.
Because writer's block is just a story. It's a convenient myth we use when we're searching for certainty where there is none.
It's demanding a guarantee for the next step.
Exactly. The professional knows the next step is uncertain, but they trust the process and they move anyway.
Speaking of things that hold us back, another huge one is sunk costs.
Oh, that's a powerful psychological anchor.
Huh.
We spend years on a degree or months on a draft, and we feel like we have to stick with it because of the effort we've already put in.
The sources say sunk costs are just gifts from your former self.
And you have to be willing to walk away from them if they aren't serving your purpose anymore.
That Harry Harrison example was just incredible.
Yeah, he finishes this whole sci-fi novel about a pandemic.
And then Michael Crichton publishes The Andromeda Strain. Huge hit. Covers similar ground.
So Harrison has this finished book, months of work, and he makes a choice. He realizes his novel is now derivative.
And what does he do?
Throws the entire finished novel out and starts over on something new. He refused to cling to the sunk cost.
That willingness to discard connects to another idea. Seeking desirable difficulty.
Right. We think smooth, easy progress is the goal, continuous flow.
But that's not where real growth happens.
No. Cognitive science shows that skills improve more effectively with desirable difficulty. Think about batting practice.
Okay.
A block of fastballs, then a block of curveballs. That feels good. You feel competent. But random mixed pitches, that's desirable difficulty. It's frustrating in the moment.
But it makes you a better hitter overall.
Much better. You have to be willing to feel incompetent just before you level up.
It's the juggling lesson all over again.
It is. And finally, the practice requires us to make assertions and to understand genre.
What do you mean by an assertion here?
It's a declaration of a temporary truth to get you started. If you wait for the perfect, fully formed idea, you never begin.
So you assert, this project is for X audience and is about Y, and you start from there.
Exactly. It's an invitation for others to join you, and you also have to place that work inside a genre.
Genre as a box.
A necessary box. It gives context. Generic work is replaceable. Genre gives you constraints, and constraints give you leverage. The real innovator doesn't ignore genre. They bend one of its boundaries.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. We're talking about a huge mindset shift.
A huge one. Stop waiting for the muse. Trust yourself.
Commit to the process over the outcome.
Define the specific change you want to make for a specific audience.
And embrace discomfort as the sign that you're growing.
Right. And let's end where we started, with that powerful analogy of Pythagoras and the 5 hammers.
In the blacksmith shop, 4 of them were harmonic, they sounded beautiful together.
And the 5th hammer was the misfit. It was the odd one out. Spurious data you're supposed to ignore.
But it was that 5th peculiar hammer that added this friction, this resonance.
That made the whole sound complex and beautiful and memorable.
The 5th hammer is that specific, idiosyncratic part of your work. The thing that doesn't quite fit the pattern.
It's the thing you're tempted to throw out because it feels too weird or too personal.
But it's what makes the work yours.
It's what puts you on the hook. It makes your work distinct. We've defined the practice. Now it's time to act. We are counting on you to make an assertion to put your bread on the hook.
So the question for you is, how will you identify and trust your own 5th hammer, the idiosyncratic contribution only you can make today?